So right now, voting is wrapping up in several states as governors' seats are up for grabs tonight in Virginia, which is closely watched race tonight, New Jersey, and also New York. As soon as we get some numbers rolling, we're going to put them up on the bottom of the screen, and we will keep you posted on that throughout the course of the story tonight. It comes, of course, at a critical time for the Democratic Party, which appears to be having some issues, shall we say, in the wake of the bombshell new book by former DNC chair Donna Brazile, who has gone after everybody from President Obama to W. Wasserman Schultz to Hillary Clinton over the course of all of this. Listen to this morning.
I read the book that you were upset with Robbie Mook, certainly. You also sound very angry with Hillary Clinton. Yes,
no,
the hacking was an issue.
My emotions are my emotions, but there's no question that I was very upset at the time because, look, I'm chair of the party. I have a lot of skin in the game. I don't report to the Democratic establishment. I report to the voters.
Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry, live at the White House tonight with the backstory. Hi, Ed.
Martha, great to see you. Some top aides to Hillary Clinton are now lashing out at Donna Brazile, but she's vowing she will not be silent, so the hits keep on coming for the Democratic Party. One of the most shocking revelations in this new book is that Brazile charges that Clinton's staff was dominated by a small number of male aides who she claims exhibited sexist behavior to her. Shocking because you'll remember Clinton and her aides spent so much time in public talking about inclusion and shattering the ultimate glass ceiling while charging that then-candidate Donald Trump mistreated women. But Brazile writes that in private, top Clinton officials, like the campaign manager you just heard about, Robbie Mook, behaved differently, nodded when she talked, but then not actually listening to her or following up on what they agreed upon. It got so ugly that on one conference call, Brazile actually blurted to the male aides, quote, "Gentlemen, let's just put our manhood out on the table and see who's got the bigger one, because I know mine is bigger than all of yours." Remember, we already learned Brazile's account of what happened after Clinton fainted at that 9/11 memorial event, which led the party chair to briefly consider changing the ticket. That led Huma Abedin and dozens of other Clinton aides to sign an open letter to Brazile charging she was buying in to Russian propaganda about Clinton's health. Brazile scoffs at all of that, says she just wanted basic respect from Clinton and her team, while Mook wishes that there was not so much turmoil right now ahead of these big gubernatorial races in places like Virginia and New Jersey.
I also wanted the candidate in her campaign to respect the Democratic National Committee. I was an officer of the DNC, and I felt that my job was to protect the Democratic National Committee, which meant all of the candidates, not just the presidential, but the down-ballot candidates as well.
I'm sure Donna was under a lot of pressure from her publisher to put this book out right on this election week when we have critical elections happening around the country. I wish she'd just put her foot down and said no.
Brazile also unloading on her predecessor at the DNC, W. Wasserman Schultz, for carving out perks that kept her, quote, fat and happy while the party was broke, including a body woman to lead Wasserman Schultz around and a giant Tahoe SUV with, yes, a driver. Brazile laments that Wasserman Schultz, Clinton, and then President Obama, in her words, all had titanic egos who stripped the DNC down for their own purposes, leaving the party, in her suggested, in shambles. Martha?
Ed, thank you very much. Ed Henry at the White House. So here now with more, Jason Chaffetz, former House Oversight Chairman. He's now a Fox News contributor. And Zach Pecanis, former senior DNC advisor, who also worked on the Clinton campaign. Zach, so let me go to you first and get your reaction to all of this.
I mean, look, I think that it is really unfortunate that it's coming, that this book is being put out right before the election. I mean, I was one of the Clinton campaign staffers that wrote a letter that talked about how that this was not the campaign that we recognize. Really, most anything that is displayed in the book. So I think it is just generally pretty unfortunate. There are large swaths of the book that have been debunked.
What do you think her motivation is? Why would she lie in her book?
Look, I mean, I can't speak to her motivation. Donna Brazile is a friend, and I like her very much. But I do think that this was incredibly unfortunate timing and choice to do this, especially right before the election.
But so you have no guess as to why you're saying that she's not telling the truth?
I'm saying that I think that it made for a good book. But
she said she was disrespected by men on the campaign. She said that they would look at her and nod, but not listen to her. He was so obsessed, basically, she said, with his data. And, you know, I mean, basically, they blew it. They blew the campaign. So she's saying, look, wake up, folks, because nobody listened to me, and I knew what we should have been doing.
I'm certainly not going to sit here and diminish her experience on the campaign. What I can say is, though, a member of that campaign, that is certainly not the campaign that I recognize. And I think it is a little, as I said, I think it is unfortunate that this is what Democrats or some Democrats are talking about going into the election.
Jason, what do you think?
Look, it is pretty stunning, the gravity of it. Look, she was very revered. I mean, she has decades with the Democratic Party and revered enough to make her the chairman of the party. So you've got to... She
helped him out in a pretty tough time, too.
She came in and stepped in at a very, very difficult time. I think the most serious allegation is this joint fundraising agreement. That may have been actually money laundering. I think one of her frustrations is she couldn't bring in impartial staff, that Clinton had signed this document basically saying, I'll help you raise money, but then you have to hire my people. Well, there's a reason why there are campaign contribution limits. You can't do that. That's called money laundering. And I think there's a real legal liability that she...
Zach's shaking his head. Why, Zach?
No, I mean, first off, the joint fundraising agreements are incredibly common. Donald Trump had one.
Until after the nominee is picked, though.
No, that's not true. Donald Trump had one before he was the nominee.
You can't bypass that and put in your own people.
Well, first off, that has nothing to do with the actual agreement. There was a memorandum of understanding that stated, and I will quote, all activities performed under this agreement will be focused exclusively on preparations for the general election and not the Democratic primary. This is an agreement. This is an agreement that was extended to the Bernie Sanders campaign. They said that if they raised money into the DNC, that they could have a say in how that money was spent. They decided not to do that, but they did decide to complain about it afterward.
All right, guys, I want to get your thoughts on this other issue today of the Comey draft statement. Back on May the 2nd, 2016, he drafted a statement in the investigation of Hillary Clinton saying that there was evidence to support a conclusion that Secretary Clinton and others used the private email server in a manner that was grossly negligent with respect to the handling of classified material. He then came out on July 5th and used this phrase. Watch.
There is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information.
So, Jason, why did grossly negligent become extremely careless, and what difference does it make?
Well, within the statute, you don't have to prove intent. But that's where the FBI director continued to go, is to say, well, we couldn't prove the intent. What's in the statute is gross negligence. So that begs the other question is, if that was in the original statement, why did you take it out? And the other huge question I have is, why were you drafting a statement weeks before you've even interviewed what ended up being nearly 16 people, including the primary suspect herself, Hillary Clinton? How do you, if a judge had started to write his opinion before the trial was over, wouldn't we all look suspiciously at that and say, what in the world are you doing?
I got to go. I'm going to give Zach one very quick response.
I think you guys got to pick your attack on James Comey. First, it was that he was too hard on Hillary Clinton, and that's why he needed to be fired. But now it was that he was too easy on Hillary Clinton. I mean, you guys got to pick one of your nonsense attack lines.
There's no Democrat that would vote to reconfirm Jim Comey. It should be one thing.
You know what? Let me just say this. What we're talking about is very specific here, and it is the statute language, grossly negligent. So it's a very legitimate question to say, why would that language be removed from the statement several months later? It's a perfectly legitimate question to ask of the Attorney General as he went, head of the FBI as he went through it.
It is simply an attempt to undermine the FBI at a time when they are bringing down indictments on the
It's just to look at the language and a question why.
And it's a hypocritical attack given the way that the people were attacking James Comey.
I don't know why anyone would be afraid to ask questions about why the FBI director would change his language on something like that. It's a perfectly legitimate discussion. Thank you very much, you guys. Good to see you both. So up next, more evidence.
All right, welcome back to Hannity. Busy breaking news night. Joining us with more reaction to this bombshell claim Hillary Clinton stole the DNC primary. Just stop. Take that in. Stole it. A rigged primary in the United States of America. Most of the media ignores it. The former National Justice Director for Bernie Sanders, Teslin Figaro, and former Clinton pollster, Fox News contributor Doug Schoen. Teslin, I think of you, and I remember you've been on the show before. Maybe we have some disagreements on some issues. I could never support Bernie Sanders. Obviously, my political views are different. But if you go and you donate and you work and you go to the polls and you wait in a primary, And it turns out it was for nothing. And every major Democrat is just trying, oh, it's nothing. That's an insult to every single person. That's a rigged election. That is them doing the things, you know, we literally have rendered the votes of people meaningless in America, disenfranchised all these people. Nothing. Your reaction?
You know, it's not even, Sean, just to those who supported Senator Sanders. It's to everyone, including you. Any American citizen that has the right to vote, to have that be disenfranchised is a disrespect to anyone who believes in the American process, democratic process. You know, Hillary Clinton wrote a book called What Happened, but Donna Brazile wrote What Really Happened, Part 2. And for that, that has hurt a lot of Democrats. They're upset. For them to even ostracize her, for someone who has spent over 40 years in the Democrat Party, has been a Clinton loyalist, to bring this news out and for them to pretty much crucify her for speaking the truth is an injustice. You know, they pretend, all of the pundits pretend, you know, there's no way Democrats can rig a primary. No one's saying that people went in and changed the voting, you know, the voting machines. What we're saying is the super delegates, the 700 super delegates that had superpower to use. Exactly, to use their power over the will of the people to influence their communities. We went out to these locations. The people told us that they wanted to support Senator Sanders, but could not because of the backlash that they pretty much Donna Brazile is receiving now.
Doug, you're an honest guy.
Yeah, look, I support the general thrust of what you and certainly Teslin are saying. People were disenfranchised, but I want to go a step further tonight. The entire Democratic Party stinks from the head down. The whole process, everyone has really stain on their hands. And with this new revelation tonight on the emails that it probably involved gross negligence, it strengthens my call and that of others for a special prosecutor to look at that, Comey, the gross negligence, to look at the email deal more generally, to look at Uranium One, the dossier, all of it. Because at this point, what we know is getting more and more troubling. I say this as a loyal Democrat. I know Teslin's a loyal Democrat. But as she said, and I would say, this is not partisan. This is about preserving our democracy.
Listen, you hear me. I am more critical of Republicans. They're weak and timid, and they've lost their identity and vision, their inability to keep promises. I'm more critical of them. And you're more critical now. What do you make of every Democrat that has gone out there? Oh, no big deal. Oh, so what? We disenfranchise Bernie people. Really?
I was the only mainstream Democrat that I'm aware of who publicly disavowed Hillary in the election. I said,
you heard Ed Rendell. You heard Terry McAuliffe.
I did. And my point is, I said there would be a constitutional crisis if she was elected. We have one now, and she wasn't elected. Sean, it stinks. It's rotten.
Oh, there's a lot more coming.
More than rigged.
I know more than I can say tonight.
Right.
There is a lot more coming. Teslin, we'll give you the last word.
I'll say that I look forward to a lot more coming that we've been talking about for years and years and years. Donna Brazile even talked about the money that was spent on consultants years ago. And for them to cast her away, to me, the only African-American woman that has led a presidential campaign in the Democrat Party, to me, says as a black woman, how they feel about black women and black women operatives who have spent their entire lives pushing the Democratic Party. And I'm offended for her and anyone else that has ever had any skin in the game in making this process work.
Sean, we need a cleansing of the entire process, a special
Trump is right. It's a swamp. Republican swamp, Democratic swamp, DC
I agree.
swamp.
It's both parties a swamp. Let's clean it out.
We
need a prosecutor.
I agree.
All right.
Thank you,
Ted. We agree tonight, Doug.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, so more new information. More to come.